The galaxy had long believed Earth to be small, quiet, and unimportant. Humans had never been known for aggression. Their species was young compared to the ancient civilizations of the stars, and their technology, while clever, was not considered threatening. Most of the Galactic Union, the council of alien species that oversaw trade and peace, viewed humanity as harmless. Some even thought humans were amusing, like curious children who had learned to explore but had not yet learned to fight. Earth itself was a busy world. Cities sparkled with lights, and humans lived their lives with energy and curiosity. Their scientists explored the stars, building new ships to travel further than any before. Their diplomats tried to make friends with other species, often carrying gifts, knowledge, and ideas instead of weapons. Humans were proud, yes, but they were cautious. They wanted trade, study, and learning, not war. That made the humans easy to underestimate. The Rulcar Empire was different. They were known across the galaxy as conquerors, warlike and cruel. Their ships were sleek, armed with energy cannons capable of destroying planets, and their warriors were trained from birth to fight without mercy. To them, the humans were just another species to control, another race to plunder. The Galactic Union tried to warn the Rulcar. Messages were sent through every channel, every messenger, every recorded transmission. Do not touch the humans. They may seem weak, but they are not defenseless. They remember. They will act if provoked. The Rulcar ignored it. No one in the galaxy fully understood why. Maybe they thought humanity was too small to matter. Maybe they believed their own power was absolute. Whatever the reason, the Rulcar began their attack quietly, striking the outer colonies that humans had built beyond the solar system. These were small settlements, home to scientists, engineers, and families who sought to live and work among the stars. The first reports were horrifying. Cities burned under alien fire. Families were taken from their homes. Starports were destroyed before humans could respond. The attacks were fast, precise, and merciless. The Rulcar wanted to show the galaxy that humans were weak, that Earth was nothing more than a stepping stone, but humanity was not as weak as they had thought. On Earth, the news of the attacks spread quickly. Leaders gathered in conference rooms, their faces tense, eyes filled with worry. Yet determination glimmered beneath their fear. They were angry, yes, but more than that, they were focused. Humanity had faced challenges before. They had survived plagues, wars, and disasters. They had explored oceans, deserts, and mountains, all against great odds. They would survive this too. The first human response was measured. Ships were sent to rescue civilians, evacuate colonies, and defend key locations. Scientists worked night and day to reinforce planetary shields, repair damaged stations, and develop new defensive technology. But humanity did not immediately strike back. They observed, calculated, and prepared. They were not acting out of revenge yet. They were planning, and planning is what humans did best. Then, when a Rulcar fleet attempted to invade the colony of Epsilon Prime, the humans responded in a way no one expected. The fleet did not attack with fury. It attacked with precision. Small human ships moved in unison, surrounding the Rulcar vessels, disabling their weapons, and capturing key officers. Humans used intelligence, strategy, and technology that even the Rulcar had not anticipated. The galaxy watched in surprise. For years, humans had been underestimated. Ancient races believed humans could not fight, could not defend themselves, and could not challenge the power of empires like the Rulcar. But humanity's reaction showed something different. Humans could fight, but more than that, they could plan, adapt, and endure. They could strike when needed, and they could strike with purpose. The message sent to the Rulcar was simple. One short transmission, clear and calm, appeared in their systems. Leave now or face the consequences. It was not a threat shouted in anger. It was quiet, firm, and certain. That certainty, more than words, unsettled the Rulcar. No one had ever sent them a warning in such a tone before. Most species would beg for mercy, offer tribute, or surrender. Humans offered none of these. They simply stated the truth. The Rulcar laughed. They believed humans were bluffing. They believed that Earth, a small planet with a seemingly weak species, could never threaten their empire. And so they ignored the warning. Weeks turned into months. The Rulcar expanded their attacks, confident in their strength. They expected humans to panic, to plead, to surrender. But humanity did none of these things. Instead, they prepared. Earth became a hub of innovation. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked together, sharing knowledge, building new ships, developing defensive systems, and training fleets. They called it the silent response. The galaxy did not yet know what that meant, but it was deliberate. Every human on Earth, every scientist in the colonies, and every soldier trained for the coming confrontation. Human ingenuity became the focus. New starships could move faster, adapt to enemy fire, and launch counterattacks with incredible accuracy. Weapons were developed to disable without unnecessary destruction, capturing the enemy alive whenever possible. Humans did not want unnecessary violence, they wanted justice and survival. Families watched their children prepare for this new era. Children learned about the stars not only as explorers, but as protectors of their species. Humans taught that courage was not just in fighting, it was in thinking, planning, and acting together. The Rulcar, meanwhile, continued their attacks without hesitation. They thought the humans were weak. They thought the humans were frightened. They thought the humans were alone. But every miscalculation, every attack was being noted. Every fleet movement, every tactical error, every weakness in their armor was recorded. Humans studied the enemy like students solving a puzzle. Then came the first counterattack. It was small, precise, and devastating, not meant to destroy everything but to show the Rulcar that humans had learned. One Rulcar colony thought to be safe was surrounded by human ships before anyone realized it. The humans disabled key systems, captured leaders, and withdrew without losing a single civilian. The Rulcar were shocked. No species had ever moved with such speed and precision. They began to whisper across their fleets about the humans' capabilities. But they still did not listen. They still ignored the warning. On Earth, leaders did not celebrate. They did not boast. They were calm. They were preparing for what they knew would come. Humans had survived many challenges, but this was different. The Rulcar were relentless. The humans would need every ounce of their courage, every skill, and every alliance to defend themselves. Yet even in the quiet moments, there was pride. Pride in the human spirit, pride in their resilience, pride in the knowledge that no one had underestimated them successfully for long. The humans had learned the galaxy could not always be trusted. Some species would harm without reason, ignore warnings, and seek advantage. Humanity would have to act not out of hatred but out of survival and justice. And so humanity waited. The galaxy continued, unaware that a storm was gathering. The Rulcar believed they were winning. The Galactic Union assumed humans would eventually surrender. But humans had other plans. They remembered the warning they had given. They remembered the cities destroyed, the families taken, and the colonies attacked. They remembered the Rulcar laughing at their message. And humans do not forget. In the quiet of Earth's command centers, in the hum of starship engines, and in the eyes of every soldier and scientist, one thought remained clear. They ignored the warning, and humans would make sure the Rulcar would never forget it. After the first counterattack, the Rulcar Empire believed they had underestimated humanity. They thought it was a fluke, a lucky maneuver by a small fleet, or a coincidence in timing. But the humans did not stop. Instead, they became quiet. They vanished from communication channels, disappearing into space as if they had never been there. The galaxy grew uneasy. Traders, scientists, and diplomats who had once looked at humans as weak began to whisper rumors. "Where are the humans?" they asked. "Why do they not respond to our messages?" Earth remained calm. The leaders of humanity did not send announcements or boast about their achievements. They did not parade their strength or broadcast threats. Instead, they focused on preparation. Each day, humans worked silently to rebuild fleets, train pilots, and improve technology. The silent response was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Small fleets moved through the outer rim without being noticed. They studied the Rulcar, observing their movements, learning their tactics, and discovering weaknesses. Every battle tactic the Rulcar used was carefully recorded. Every fleet formation was analyzed. Humans learned quickly, faster than any other species had in history. It was not only military skill that made humans dangerous. Humans had a way of seeing patterns that others could not. They predicted enemy movements, planned several steps ahead, and coordinated across hundreds of ships simultaneously. Communication was instantaneous, efficient, and precise. Humans trusted one another, and that trust gave them strength no weapon could match. Meanwhile, the Rulcar continued their attacks, unaware of how much they had underestimated humanity. They burned colonies, attacked supply lines, and captured outposts, believing their victory was near. Each time, humans responded silently, striking only where necessary. No unnecessary violence, no civilian casualties, only precise, calculated actions. The first large-scale human operation began in the Astara cluster, a region heavily controlled by the Rulcar. Hundreds of human ships appeared suddenly, surrounding key supply stations and fleet depots. Within hours, they had disabled weapons, captured enemy leaders, and retreated without being detected. The galaxy began to notice a pattern. The humans did not seek conquest or glory. They did not destroy everything in their path. Instead, they acted with purpose, targeting only what threatened their people. They were hunters, but not mindless killers. Reports from Rulcar survivors spread fear. One officer described the humans as silent shadows in the void, striking without anger, without hesitation, without mercy, yet without cruelty. They are precise, calm, and terrifying. Humans were changing the balance of power in the galaxy, not with raw force, but with skill, intelligence, and unity. They had become something no one expected. On Earth, leaders monitored every Rulcar move. Scientists and engineers tested new technology in secret. Pilots trained for long hours, perfecting maneuvers that even veteran commanders could not predict. Every human was part of the response, whether on the battlefield or behind the scenes. But humans did not see themselves as conquerors. They were not seeking revenge for pleasure. They wanted only to stop the Rulcar from harming anyone else. Humanity's goal was simple: survival, protection, and justice. As the silent response continued, humans began to strike deeper into Rulcar territory. Colonies that had been thought safe for the Empire were suddenly under threat. Rulcar fleets vanished without a trace, leaving confusion and fear in their wake. Every ship lost, every officer captured, every base taken was a lesson for the humans and a warning for the Rulcar. In one daring operation, humans infiltrated the Rulcar communication network. Using advanced technology, they sent false orders, redirecting fleets, causing confusion, and preventing reinforcements from reaching key battles. The Rulcar could not understand what was happening. They had never faced an enemy so smart, so disciplined, and so determined. On the outskirts of the Rulcar Empire, humans moved like shadows. They appeared suddenly, struck quickly, and disappeared without leaving evidence. Colonies thought safe were no longer safe. Supply lines were cut, fleets destroyed, and Rulcar officers captured. Humans were silent hunters, studying their prey and striking with perfect precision. Meanwhile, Earth prepared for a larger confrontation. Humans trained relentlessly. New fleets were built, faster and stronger than before. Engineers worked on weapons that could disable enemy ships without harming civilians. Scientists developed shields, stealth systems, and communication tools that allowed fleets to move undetected across the galaxy. Despite the danger, life on Earth continued. Children learned about the stars, not just as explorers, but as protectors. Citizens worked together, contributing in every way they could. Humanity understood that survival was not only about the soldiers in space, but about the people on the planet supporting them. The Rulcar began to panic. They had expected humans to plead, surrender, or negotiate. Instead, humans struck with intelligence and efficiency. They had learned every Rulcar tactic, every fleet pattern, every weakness. Nothing escaped the humans' notice. Rumors spread across the galaxy. The humans are preparing something, aliens whispered. They are not afraid. They do not fight for pride or glory. They fight to protect, and they will not stop. Even the Galactic Union watched with surprise. The humans were young compared to other civilizations, yet they had shown strength, unity, and intelligence that surpassed most. No other species had adapted so quickly to the threats of the Rulcar Empire. The turning point came when humans launched a coordinated strike across multiple Rulcar sectors. Dozens of colonies were liberated in a single operation. Human ships moved in perfect formation, striking at critical points and retreating before the Rulcar could respond. The Rulcar Emperor was furious. "These humans are not what they seem," he said to his council. "They learn. They adapt. They strike with intelligence. And they do not fear us. We must act carefully or we will lose everything." But it was too late. Humanity had already learned more than the Rulcar could imagine. Every mistake, every weakness, every flaw in the Rulcar system had been recorded and analyzed. The humans were ready for the next phase, yet humans remained calm. They did not celebrate victories. They did not boast. They acted with quiet confidence. Every move was calculated, every strike intentional. They were hunters, yes, but not driven by anger. They were driven by the knowledge that those who ignored warnings must face consequences. The galaxy began to fear humanity. Traitors, diplomats, and other alien species spoke in hushed tones. "Do not provoke them," they warned one another. "They are young, but they are clever. They do not fight for glory, but they do not forgive mistakes." On Earth, the leaders knew the work was not over. The Rulcar Empire was strong, their fleets vast. But humans had something stronger: unity, intelligence, and determination. They were not just defending their home. They were protecting their people, their colonies, and the principle that warnings must not be ignored. And humanity waited, silently in the shadows. One human commander, speaking to her crew before a mission, said, "We are not here to destroy for pleasure. We are here to protect. We are here to show that anyone who harms us or our people will face the consequences. That is all." Her crew nodded, understanding that this was more than a mission. It was a promise. Across the galaxy, the Rulcar continued to act arrogantly, unaware that humanity was no longer a species to underestimate. They thought they were powerful, clever, and unstoppable. But humans had already changed the rules. They had learned patience, strategy, and precision, and they had remembered the warning that the Rulcar had ignored. As the silent response continued, the Rulcar fleets began to vanish. Colonies thought secure were suddenly under human control. Officers were captured, not executed, but studied and released as a warning. The humans were not cruel, they were precise. Every action had meaning. Every strike was part of a larger plan. The galaxy began to realize something important. Humanity was no longer weak, no longer harmless, and no longer to be underestimated. And the Rulcar would soon understand that ignoring a warning from humans was a mistake they could never undo. The galaxy had begun to whisper about humans. Traders, diplomats, and explorers all spoke cautiously when Earth was mentioned. "The humans are different now," one alien ambassador said. "They do not seek war, but if you cross them, they will strike, and you will not see it coming." It was true. Humanity had changed. They were no longer the quiet, underestimated species of the past. They had become hunters in the void, moving with purpose, precision, and patience. Their fleets were smaller than some empires, but every ship, every pilot, and every system was perfectly coordinated. Humans had learned the Rulcar ways, studied their strategies, and adapted. And now they were ready to hunt. The first large-scale human operation was known as the Eclipse Strike. Hundreds of human ships moved silently across the Zenthara expanse, a sector filled with Rulcar supply lines and minor colonies. The humans did not announce their approach. There were no warnings, no ultimatums. They appeared like shadows, invisible until it was too late. At dawn, Rulcar officers on one of their outposts noticed something strange. Sensors flickered. Systems showed interference. Then, without warning, human ships emerged from the shadows surrounding the colony. The humans struck quickly, disabling the colony's defense grid and capturing the leadership before the Rulcar could organize a defense. No lives were lost unnecessarily. The humans were precise. They were careful, but the message was clear. The hunters had arrived. Across the galaxy, Rulcar fleets began to disappear. Entire supply convoys vanished between star systems. Colonies thought safe were suddenly under human control. Humans moved like shadows in space, appearing and disappearing at will. Every strike was a lesson in patience and strategy. One Rulcar commander, speaking after a failed counterattack, said, "These humans, they do not fight like any species we have faced. They are not wild. They are not reckless. They strike with intelligence and calculation. It is as if the stars themselves obey them." Human fleets continued their hunt. They did not seek to destroy everything, they focused on threats. Each fleet, each colony, each weapon system they neutralized was carefully selected. Civilians were protected whenever possible. Prisoners were taken to gather intelligence, never harmed unnecessarily. Humans fought to win, not to kill. One daring mission involved the liberation of the colony of Talrek. The colony had been captured months earlier by a Rulcar fleet. Human ships approached silently, under the cover of a meteor belt. They disabled the enemy communication systems, then boarded the main station. The Rulcar soldiers were surprised. They had expected chaos, panic, and human weakness. Instead, they found calm, precision, and relentless determination. Within hours, the colony was freed and no civilian lives were lost. It was not just military skill that made humans terrifying. It was their ability to adapt. Every time the Rulcar changed tactics, humans studied and adjusted. Fleets learned new maneuvers, ships were upgraded with countermeasures, and every attack became more efficient. No strategy went unnoticed. Every weakness was recorded and used in future operations. In another region, humans targeted the Rulcar's hidden supply stations. Using stealth ships and advanced tracking systems, they infiltrated the stations, downloaded crucial data, and retreated before detection. This allowed humans to anticipate Rulcar movements and plan strikes with deadly efficiency. Meanwhile, Earth continued its own preparations. Scientists developed new ships capable of traveling faster than conventional engines allowed, while engineers reinforced defensive systems and improved stealth technology. Pilots trained for long missions in deep space, learning to maneuver through asteroid fields, debris, and enemy territory with precision. The humans were not reckless hunters. They were strategic predators. They did not strike blindly. They studied, learned, and calculated. Every attack was deliberate. Every mission had a purpose. The galaxy began to realize that the humans were not simply fighting back. They were rewriting the rules of engagement. Alien witnesses told stories of the humans' calm demeanor during battles. They do not shout, one observer said. They do not panic. They act as if they are part of the universe itself. Every movement is controlled, every strike is perfect. I have never seen a species like this. Even the Rulcar Emperor grew anxious. These humans, they are unlike anything we have faced. They do not fear us. They do not attack recklessly. They hunt, they study, and they strike with precision. We must rethink everything or we will be destroyed. But it was too late. Humanity had already mastered the art of the hunt. The next phase of their campaign targeted the Rulcar's main fleet routes. Human ships moved in coordinated groups, cutting off reinforcements and isolating key sectors. Rulcar commanders tried to regroup, but every move they made was anticipated. Every fleet lost became a warning to others. Humans were no longer just defenders, they were hunters, moving across the galaxy with purpose and skill. The humans' reputation spread. Across the stars, traders and explorers began to reroute their ships to avoid the conflict. Diplomats warned other species not to provoke humans. Even species that had once viewed humanity as weak began to respect their capabilities. Humans were young, but they were powerful, clever, and united. One small alien settlement, observing the humans' tactics from a distance, remarked, "They fight not for conquest, not for pride, but for survival and justice. They are unlike any species we have known. If the humans decide to protect something, nothing will stop them." As the hunt continued, humans showed mercy where possible. Captured Rulcar soldiers were treated fairly, questioned for intelligence, and then released with a warning. Humans did not kill out of anger. They killed only to defend, to prevent further harm, and to maintain the balance of power. One human commander reflected on their strategy during a quiet moment in space. "We are hunters, yes," she said, looking at the stars. "But we do not hunt for pleasure. We hunt to protect our people, our colonies, and the galaxy from those who would bring harm. That is all. That is our purpose." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. Humanity's strength was not in violence, it was in unity, intelligence, and purpose. They did not need to shout or boast. Their actions spoke louder than any words could. The Rulcar, meanwhile, grew desperate. Colonies were lost, fleets destroyed, and their officers captured. They could not understand how a species they once considered weak had become so formidable. Every mistake they made was studied and exploited by humans. The galaxy began to realize that the Rulcar had underestimated the wrong species. The humans' next target was the Rulcar's communication network. Using advanced hacking and stealth technology, human teams infiltrated the network, sending false orders to fleets, redirecting resources, and sowing confusion. The Rulcar could not communicate effectively, their fleets were isolated, and their empire began to crumble. Even as humans struck across the galaxy, they remained disciplined. No civilian was harmed unnecessarily. No colony was destroyed without reason. Humans were precise hunters, but they were also protectors. Their goal was not to conquer, it was to stop the Rulcar and prevent further suffering. The galaxy began to understand something important. Humanity was no longer weak. They were not just clever, they were unstoppable when united. They were hunters, yes, but they were also guardians. In the final operation of this phase, human fleets surrounded several Rulcar colonies simultaneously. Using stealth, strategy, and superior coordination, they captured key leaders, disabled weapons, and liberated the colonies. The operation was flawless. Not a single human ship was lost. The Rulcar Emperor, watching from his capital, could not believe what he saw. How can they be so precise, so efficient? They are learning faster than we can adapt. We underestimated them, and it will cost us everything. But humanity did not gloat. They did not celebrate. They prepared for the next phase. Their hunt was far from over. They had sent a message to the Rulcar Empire and to the galaxy. Humans were hunters in the void, and they would not be ignored again. And as the stars watched, humans continued their silent hunt, striking only where necessary, protecting those who could not protect themselves, and showing the galaxy that the species once underestimated had become a force unlike any other. The humans had become the hunters of the void. The galaxy had begun to change. The once feared Rulcar Empire was now in chaos. Entire colonies had been liberated, fleets destroyed, and leaders captured. The humans had moved with quiet precision, striking only where necessary and avoiding unnecessary destruction. They were hunters, yes, but also protectors, a combination that no other species had achieved. The Rulcar Emperor could feel his empire crumbling. The fleets that had once struck fear across the galaxy were now scattered, weak and confused. His generals argued among themselves, blaming each other for mistakes, but the truth was clear. The humans had outsmarted them. They had studied, adapted, and struck with perfect coordination. The Rulcar had ignored the warning, and now the consequences were clear. From Earth, human leaders observed the remnants of the Empire. They knew the hunt was nearing its end, but humanity did not strike recklessly. They had learned that power without control leads to destruction, and they were careful not to overstep. Every move was deliberate, every decision calculated. The humans had the strength to destroy, but they chose restraint. That restraint, however, did not make them weak. On the contrary, it made their actions even more terrifying to those who had underestimated them. Human fleets moved toward the Rulcar homeworld, not to destroy, but to send a message. A single massive human dreadnought entered orbit, its engines silent, its weapons lowered, yet its presence was overwhelming. Every species watching from nearby systems could sense the power radiating from the ship. Humans did not need to fire a single shot to demonstrate their strength. A message was transmitted across the galaxy, reaching every fleet, every colony, every council chamber. We gave them a warning. They chose to ignore it. Humanity does not seek conquest or glory. We act to protect our people and our colonies. But if you harm our people again, we will remind you what we are capable of. The words were simple, but their meaning was clear. Humanity had the power to destroy, but they did not act without reason. They had acted in defense of their people, and they would continue to do so if necessary. Across the galaxy, alien species reacted with a mixture of fear and respect. Traders rerouted their ships, diplomats reconsidered alliances, and explorers reported back cautiously. Humans had demonstrated something no one had expected. They were not only capable of defending themselves, but they were capable of controlling their power with intelligence and discipline. The Rulcar Emperor, receiving the transmission, could not respond. His fleets were scattered, his colonies under human control, and his empire weakened beyond repair. He realized too late that underestimating humanity had been the gravest mistake he had ever made. The warning had been clear, and now the humans had acted with precision and determination. On Earth, leaders did not celebrate. There were no parades, no speeches, no ceremonies. They understood that the galaxy was still full of dangers. Other species might test humanity's limits, but for now the message had been sent and it was received loud and clear. Humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. They were a force that demanded respect, not through terror but through skill, intelligence, and unity. Meanwhile, the Rulcar survivors attempted to regroup. They tried to organize fleets, reclaim colonies, and rebuild their communication networks. But every move they made was anticipated by humans. Through intelligence gathered from captured officers and colonies, Humans knew their enemies' plans before they were executed. Every attempt to strike back was met with calculated response, leaving the Rulcar frustrated and defeated. Human fleets continued to patrol strategic sectors, not to conquer, but to protect. They moved silently, unseen, and always prepared. The galaxy began to refer to them as silent guardians, a species that struck only when necessary, but never hesitated when their people were threatened. Their presence was a warning to all. Humanity had power, and it was guided by reason, not anger. In the Galactic Union, members debated humanity's rise. Some species admired humans for their discipline and intelligence. Others feared them, knowing that humanity had demonstrated abilities far beyond what anyone had predicted. One ambassador stated, "We have underestimated the humans for too long. They do not seek to dominate, yet they have proven they will act decisively when provoked. Every species must take note." Meanwhile, humans continued their operations against the remaining pockets of the Rulcar Empire. Using stealth, strategy, and speed, they liberated colonies that had been occupied for years. Each operation was precise, avoiding unnecessary harm and focusing on dismantling the Empire's ability to wage war. The humans were hunters in the void, but their hunts were guided by purpose and restraint. Even as they moved, humans left behind a clear message. Symbols of warning were placed on captured Rulcar outposts, not as a threat, but as a reminder. Ignoring humanity's warning comes at a cost. Across the galaxy, species who had previously disregarded humans began to reconsider their assumptions. No longer were humans seen as weak, small, or insignificant. They were now a species that had mastered strategy, intelligence, and the careful application of power. One human commander, speaking to her crew before a major operation, said, "We are not here to conquer. We are here to protect. Every move we make has meaning. Every action has a purpose. Our strength is not just in our weapons. It is in our unity, our discipline, and our commitment to justice. Remember that and we will succeed." Her words reflected humanity's core principle. Strength without purpose is dangerous, but strength with discipline, intelligence, and morality is unstoppable. That principle guided every fleet, every pilot, and every mission. The final operation of this phase involved a coordinated strike across multiple sectors. Human fleets surrounded key Rulcar colonies simultaneously, disabling communications, capturing leaders, and securing critical infrastructure. The operation was flawless. Not a single human ship was lost. Civilians were protected, and every action reinforced humanity's reputation as both powerful and disciplined. When the Rulcar Emperor saw the results, he understood the full extent of his failure. His empire, once feared across the galaxy, was now fractured, powerless, and humiliated. He had ignored the warning, and now the humans had demonstrated their abilities with clarity and precision. Yet humans did not gloat. There were no celebrations, no triumphs, only quiet determination. They had achieved what they set out to do: protect their people, liberate colonies, and send a message to the galaxy that humanity could not be ignored. Across the stars, species began to adjust their behavior. Alliances were reconsidered. Treaties were rewritten. Humans were no longer underestimated. They had become a species that commanded respect not through fear, but through skill, intelligence, and careful action. In the quiet of Earth's command centers, leaders reflected on the journey so far. They understood that the galaxy was full of unknown threats, but they also knew something important. Humanity's strength was not just in their weapons, their fleets, or their technology. It was in their ability to learn, adapt, and act with purpose. As the humans continued their operations, the message was clear to all. Ignoring humanity comes with consequences. But those consequences were not born from anger. They were born from intelligence, unity, and the unwavering determination to protect what mattered. And so, the galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget. The humans had spoken. Their actions were decisive, and their power was undeniable. They were hunters, yes, but also protectors. They had delivered their message, and now the galaxy understood. Humanity was a force to be respected, a species that combined intelligence, strategy, and restraint in a way no other had ever achieved. The Rulcar Empire lay in ruins, and the survivors were scattered across the stars. Other species, once dismissive of humanity, now watched with caution, understanding that the humans were not just strong, they were unstoppable when united. Disciplined and driven by purpose, humanity had sent their message to the galaxy. They had shown that warnings were not to be ignored. They had demonstrated their skill, intelligence, and unity, and they had done it all without unnecessary cruelty, without reckless destruction, and without losing their moral compass. The galaxy would remember this moment forever, and humanity, silent in their determination, prepared for the final phase. The hunt was nearing its end, but their vigilance would never waver. They had delivered their message. They had proven their strength. And they had shown the galaxy that humans do not forget. The silent guardians of the void had spoken, and now every species knew that the humans were no longer to be underestimated. The galaxy had changed forever. The Rulcar Empire lay fractured, its fleet scattered and its colonies liberated. Species that had once laughed at humanity now watched in quiet respect. Humans had delivered their warning, and they had done it with intelligence, precision, and discipline. They had fought, adapted, and hunted the threat without unnecessary cruelty. Yet for humanity, the fight was not over. They did not seek conquest or glory. Their goal was clear: protect their people, secure their colonies, and ensure that no species would dare to threaten them or their allies again. Earth became a hub of planning and preparation. Scientists, engineers, and strategists worked tirelessly, improving technology and refining tactics. New fleets were built faster and stronger than ever before. Ships capable of long-distance stealth travel were developed, allowing humans to reach distant sectors of the galaxy quickly and quietly. Every new development, every design, every strategy was tested rigorously before deployment. Humanity had learned that vigilance was as important as strength. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers, and intelligence alone was not enough. Humans trained pilots for endurance, soldiers for precision, and scientists for innovation. Every citizen contributed in some way, whether through research, engineering, or maintaining the infrastructure that allowed fleets to operate smoothly. The Rulcar survivors had retreated to the edge of known space, attempting to regroup. But they were weak, disorganized, and wary. Every colony they attempted to reclaim was met with human resistance. The humans did not pursue vengeance recklessly. They acted strategically, dismantling the Rulcar's ability to organize and preventing future attacks. One Rulcar commander, speaking after a failed attempt to take a supply station, said, "They do not fight like anyone we have faced. They are not driven by anger or pride. They study, they plan, and they act with perfect timing. They are unstoppable." Humanity's reputation spread across the stars. Other species began to refer to them as the Silent Guardians, a people who struck only when necessary, yet whose presence was always felt. Humans had proven that strength paired with discipline, intelligence, and morality could achieve what brute force alone never could. Despite their power, humans remained humble. They did not claim territories that were not theirs. They did not demand tribute or obedience. Their actions were measured, their interventions deliberate. Humanity had learned that respect is earned through action, not intimidation. And their actions had earned respect across the galaxy. In one strategic operation, human fleets moved to secure the last Rulcar strongholds. Using stealth, speed, and coordination, they surrounded key outposts, captured enemy leaders, and disabled critical systems. Civilians were evacuated wherever possible, and prisoners were treated with fairness. The humans' goal was not destruction. It was control, stability, and the prevention of future threats. While these operations continued, humanity maintained contact with other species. Diplomatic channels were strengthened, treaties were rewritten, and new alliances formed. Humans had demonstrated their power, and now they sought stability across the galaxy. Their message was clear. They would act decisively to protect their people, but they also valued cooperation, peace, and fairness. On Earth, leaders gathered to discuss the future. One commander addressed the council. "We have won battles, liberated colonies, and shown the galaxy our strength. But victory is not about dominance. It is about security, trust, and vigilance. We must remain prepared, not for revenge, but to ensure that threats never rise again." Her words reflected humanity's philosophy. They had fought not out of hatred or ambition, but out of necessity. Their discipline, intelligence, and unity had allowed them to survive and thrive in a galaxy that had underestimated them. And now they had become guardians, silent, patient, and ready to act whenever danger threatened. The Rulcar survivors, scattered across distant systems, realized the truth too late. They had ignored humanity's warning, believing the humans weak, and now they had faced a species that was clever, disciplined, and unyielding. The lesson was clear: humanity does not forget, and those who threaten them will face consequences. Human fleets patrolled strategically important sectors, ensuring the safety of liberated colonies and monitoring potential threats. Their presence was subtle yet undeniable. Even species that had never interacted with humans were aware of their capabilities. Traders adjusted their routes, explorers moved cautiously, and empires reconsidered strategies in light of humanity's rise. One young human officer reflected on the changes. "We are no longer the quiet explorers we once were," he said. "We have learned that strength without purpose is meaningless. But when paired with discipline, intelligence, and justice, it becomes unstoppable. We protect, we defend, and we remember. That is what makes us human." Indeed, humans had become more than just a species. They were a force of balance. They were hunters when necessary, but also protectors of life, civilization, and justice. Their actions demonstrated that power could be wielded responsibly, and that intelligence combined with moral purpose could change the galaxy. In the years that followed, humanity continued to expand its presence across the stars. They did not conquer for glory or territory. They built colonies as hubs of science, trade, and cooperation. They shared knowledge with species that sought it and defended those who could not defend themselves. Their reputation as silent guardians grew stronger with each passing year. The galaxy remembered the Rulcar, but not as a lesson in terror. They were remembered as a cautionary tale, a species that ignored humanity's warning and suffered the consequences. Across countless worlds, the same phrase was whispered: they ignored the warning. And humanity never forgets. Yet humanity's story was not one of vengeance, it was one of resilience, unity, and principle. They had proven that a species once underestimated could rise through intelligence, strategy, and moral courage. They had shown that strength was not measured by destruction, but by the ability to protect, defend, and act with justice. On Earth, children learned the story of the Silent Guardians. They were taught not only about battles and fleets, but about the values that had guided humanity through the crisis: courage, intelligence, unity, and responsibility. Every citizen, from scientists to pilots to engineers, understood their role in safeguarding the galaxy, and humanity did not rest. They remained vigilant, watching from the shadows, ready to act at a moment's notice. They had seen what could happen when warnings were ignored, and they were determined never to allow such a mistake again. Some species feared humanity. Others respected them. All understood that humans were no longer the species to be dismissed. They had shown the galaxy what determination, intelligence, and unity could achieve. They had become guardians of peace, hunters when necessary and protectors always. The stars themselves seemed to recognize the change. Where once humans had been underestimated, now they were regarded with respect and caution. Every fleet, every colony, every outpost knew that the humans were vigilant. They were silent, patient, and ready to act. They were guardians of the galaxy, ensuring that no species could threaten the peace that humanity had fought to protect. In the end, humanity had achieved more than victory. They had earned their place as a force of balance. They had demonstrated that even a species once underestimated could rise to greatness through intelligence, strategy, and morality. And so, the humans watched over the galaxy, not as conquerors but as guardians, silent, patient, and vigilant. They had proven the ultimate truth: strength guided by purpose, unity, and justice could achieve what no empire could accomplish through fear alone. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And humanity, ever watchful, continued to remind the stars of one simple truth. They ignored the warning, and humanity never forgets. The silent guardians of the void had completed their mission. Their vigilance ensured that peace was protected, and that no species would dare challenge them without consequences. And though the galaxy moved on, one thing remained unchanged. Humanity would always stand ready, intelligent, united, and unwavering. Their fight was not for glory, it was for survival, justice, and the protection of life across the stars. The humans had become legends, not through domination, but through principle, skill, and moral courage. Their story was now written in the stars, a tale of resilience and power guided by intelligence and purpose. And the galaxy would remember, forever, that humanity had risen to protect, and that no warning given by humans should ever be ignored again.